The galaxy has witnessed countless wars, countless empires rising and falling among the stars. But the survival of an entire interstellar civilization once depended on a single moment, and on a single human who refused to walk away. Most heroes are trained for greatness. Some are born into power. But the man who changed everything that day was neither. He was simply an engineer. Jonas Hale did not command fleets or lead armies. He repaired broken machines drifting between the outer colonies. Cargo haulers with failing engines. Mining rigs torn apart by asteroid storms. Life support systems that stopped working at the worst possible moment. He trusted tools, circuits, and logic. Destiny was never part of the job description. Yet destiny arrived on a forgotten moon at the edge of explored space. The surface of Talvora 9 looked like a graveyard. Broken ships were scattered across the cracked black stone like skeletons. Burned transport hulls. Destroyed combat drones. Melted armor plates. Whatever battle had happened here, it had been brutal and recent. Jonas's small salvage shuttle touched down carefully among the wreckage. His contract was simple: recover anything valuable. Navigation cores. Power cells. Advanced processors. No questions. No involvement. No heroes. He stepped out wearing a worn engineering suit and activated his scanner. The device hummed softly as it searched the battlefield for functioning technology. Most of the signals were dead. Then something unexpected appeared on the screen. A faint life sign. Jonas frowned. It wasn't human. He stared at the scanner for a moment. Getting involved with alien conflicts was dangerous. Political borders in this region changed every few weeks. Helping the wrong side could mean prison, or worse. The smart choice was obvious. Ignore it. He took 2 steps toward a damaged cargo module. The scanner beeped again. The signal was weaker now. Slower. Dying. Jonas sighed. Yeah. I knew today was going too smoothly. He followed the signal through twisted metal and collapsed plating until he reached the wreck of a small military craft half buried in the rock. Inside the shattered cockpit lay a tall alien figure. Her armor was elegant but badly damaged. Deep plasma burns had torn through the chest plate. Several systems were sparking. Internal diagnostics flickered weakly across the cracked surface. She should already be dead. But she wasn't. Her breathing was shallow. Irregular. Jonas knelt beside her. "All right," he muttered quietly. "I have absolutely no idea what species you are, but let's see what we can do." Her armor still had minimal power. That was enough. He opened his toolkit. Most engineers across the galaxy relied on specialized repair drones and advanced diagnostic systems. Jonas preferred improvisation. He located an access panel along the armor's side and connected his portable scanner. The display lit up instantly. The technology made him blink. This wasn't militia equipment. This wasn't pirate gear. This was something far more advanced. Layers of systems overlapped in ways he had never seen before. The armor contained medical processors, automated repair units, and what appeared to be a complex biological support network integrated directly with the wearer's body. And most of it was failing. The main power conduit had shattered during the crash. Without energy, the internal medical systems were shutting down one by one. Jonas cracked his knuckles. "Well," he said quietly, "machines are machines." He bypassed the destroyed conduit and rerouted power from surviving circuits. Then he connected his portable fusion cell directly into the armor's grid. Warning symbols flashed across the screen in an unknown language. He ignored them. Energy surged through the system. Several medical processors came back online. The alien's breathing steadied slightly. "Good," Jonas whispered. Next came the armor damage. Several breaches were leaking pressure and coolant. He sealed them using industrial repair foam normally meant for mining equipment. It wasn't designed for medical use. But it stopped the leaks. Then he adjusted the thermal regulators to stabilize her body temperature. Every decision was an educated guess based on engineering logic. Life, Jonas believed, was just another complicated system. 20 minutes later, The worst of the warnings stopped. Vital signs stabilized. Not healthy, but alive. Jonas leaned back against a broken hull plate and wiped sweat from his forehead. "Well," he said to the unconscious alien, "that's the best I can do out here." He hesitated for a moment. Leaving her here would be easier. But he already knew he wouldn't. Jonas carefully lifted the armored figure and carried her back to his shuttle. 3 hours later they arrived at an abandoned mining station hidden inside a hollow asteroid. The station still had power, barely. Jonas converted an old maintenance bay into a medical lab using fabrication tools and spare equipment. Industrial scanners replaced medical ones. Fabricated polymer tubing replaced surgical tools. Improvised solutions filled the gaps where proper technology was missing. It was messy. Illegal in at least 12 star systems. And surprisingly effective. Through the long night Jonas worked without stopping. He created temporary vascular supports using medical polymers. He synthesized stabilizing compounds using the station's chemical processor. He even modified a materials resonance scanner to stimulate cellular recovery. Piece by piece the alien's condition improved. By morning her breathing was steady. Internal bleeding had stopped. Neural activity increased. Jonas finally collapsed into a chair, exhausted. "You're tough," he murmured. A few minutes later he fell asleep beside the equipment. What he didn't see was the alien opening her eyes. Golden. Sharp. Aware. She remained still while hidden sensors analyzed the environment. Improvised medical equipment. Industrial machinery. Human biological signature nearby. Her armor's memory logs replayed the events of the previous night. A human engineer had stabilized catastrophic damage using crude but surprisingly brilliant methods. Not elegant, but effective. Very effective. The alien slowly flexed her fingers as strength returned. Her mind reached out toward the vast quantum communication network that connected her empire. Nothing. The connection was gone. Her golden eyes shifted toward the sleeping human. He had saved her without knowing who she was. Without knowing the consequences. Because the woman lying on that metal platform was not just a soldier. She was Empress Nythera Solori, ruler of the Celestial Dominion. Sovereign of more than 800 star systems. For decades she had ruled from the shadows through hidden networks and distributed authority. Few beings in the galaxy even knew she truly existed. And someone had just tried very hard to kill her. If her enemies discovered she survived, they would come again. Her gaze settled on the human engineer. Jonas Hale had chosen compassion without hesitation. Now he was connected to the fate of an empire. And neither of them yet understood the truth about humanity. Across the galaxy, humans were considered minor players. Creative. Persistent. But politically insignificant. Yet one human had already done something elite imperial scientists might have failed to accomplish. He had improvised life from destruction. Outside the asteroid station, deep space remained silent. But far away, powerful forces were already moving. Because somewhere among the stars, certain leaders had just received terrifying news. The Empress still lived. And this time, she had a human on her side. The first thing Empress Nythera noticed when she woke was the silence. Not the peaceful silence of space, but the tense, fragile quiet that comes before something breaks. The abandoned mining station around her hummed with weak power, its old generators struggling to keep the lights alive. The air smelled faintly of metal and coolant. Across the room, the human engineer was still asleep in a chair, his head resting against the wall. Jonas Hale looked nothing like the warriors who had nearly killed her. His clothing was simple. His tools were scattered across the floor. Half of the equipment surrounding her was clearly improvised. Yet every system connected to her armor showed the same conclusion. She was alive because of him. Nythera slowly sat up. Pain moved through her body like cold fire, but the damage was no longer fatal. The human's crude repairs had stabilized her internal systems enough for her own biology to begin healing. It was impressive. She studied the engineer quietly. Humans had always been difficult for the galaxy to understand. They lacked the elegant technologies of ancient species. Their empires were small compared to older civilizations. But they solved problems differently. Where others used precision, humans used creativity. Where others followed rules, humans rewrote them. Nythera had seen this before in diplomatic reports, but witnessing it directly was different. This human had rebuilt alien medical technology using mining tools. That alone made him dangerous. Jonas suddenly stirred. His eyes opened slowly, and for a moment confusion crossed his face. Then he remembered everything. He sat up quickly when he saw her awake. "Well," he said carefully, raising both hands. "Good morning. Or, whatever time counts as morning for you." Nythera studied him for several seconds. "You saved my life," she said. Her voice was calm but carried authority that filled the room. Jonas scratched the back of his head awkwardly. "Technically, I just fixed your armor," he replied. "You did most of the surviving yourself." Nythera almost smiled. Before she could respond, a quiet alarm tone echoed through the station. Jonas frowned. "That's not good." He turned toward a nearby console and activated the external sensors. 3 signals appeared on the screen. Ships. Small. Fast. Military design. They were approaching the asteroid. Nythera's expression hardened instantly. "They found us." Jonas glanced at her. "You know them?" "Yes." She stood slowly, her damaged armor shifting as systems reactivated. "They are assassins." Jonas blinked. "Of course they are." Outside the asteroid station, the 3 ships slowed as they approached the mining structure. Their hulls were dark, built for stealth rather than combat. These vessels did not belong to any official fleet. They belonged to people who erased problems quietly. Inside the control cockpit of the lead ship, a reptilian alien studied the station on his screen. Commander Varkesh was a professional killer. For 20 years he had worked for the highest bidder in the galaxy. Governments, corporations, secret alliances, it did not matter. This contract, however, was different. Because the target was not supposed to exist. Yet the evidence was clear. The Empress had survived. Varkesh smiled slowly. "Prepare boarding teams." Back inside the station, Jonas was already moving. His brain had shifted into problem-solving mode. "How many of them?" he asked. 3 ships, Nythera answered. "Possibly 20 soldiers." Jonas nodded. "Okay. Not great." He pulled up a map of the mining facility. The station was old but large. Long corridors connected cargo bays, drilling shafts, and processing chambers. Plenty of places for a fight. Nythera stepped beside him. "You should leave," she said. "This conflict is not yours." Jonas glanced at her like she had suggested something ridiculous. "They followed you here. That makes it my problem now." Nythera studied him again. "Humans are either very brave," she said quietly, "or very foolish." Jonas grinned. "Usually both." Outside, the enemy ships docked with the station. Metal doors opened. 20 armored figures moved into the corridors. Their equipment was advanced. Energy rifles. Tactical drones. Sensor jammers. They expected resistance. But not creativity. Inside the mining station, Jonas had already begun preparing. He opened control panels and rewired the station's old systems. Conveyor belts roared to life. Cargo cranes activated. Automated mining lasers powered up for the first time in years. Nythera watched in fascination. "You are turning a mining station into a weapon," she observed. Jonas shrugged. "It's what we humans do." The first assassin team entered a cargo corridor. Immediately the lights went out. Darkness swallowed the hallway. Their sensors flickered as interference flooded the system. Then the conveyor belts suddenly activated. Heavy cargo containers began moving through the corridor at high speed. The assassins scattered as several tons of metal crates smashed through their formation. 2 soldiers were knocked into the walls. The rest opened fire blindly. Meanwhile, Jonas sealed blast doors behind them. "Divide and confuse," he muttered. Nythera stood beside him, watching the chaotic sensor feed. "You planned this in less than 3 minutes." 4 minutes, Jonas corrected. Another group of assassins attempted to move through the mining shafts. Jonas triggered the drilling lasers. Bright beams of energy sliced through the tunnels, forcing the soldiers to retreat. Elsewhere, cargo cranes swung heavy machinery through narrow corridors like giant metal hammers. The station itself had become a maze of traps. The assassins were trained for battle, but not for madness. Commander Varkesh watched the disaster unfold from orbit. "What is happening down there?" he growled. One of his officers answered nervously. "The human is weaponizing the facility." Varkesh narrowed his eyes. Humans. He had heard the rumors. Unpredictable. Dangerously inventive. Inside the station, Jonas sealed another corridor and leaned back against the console. "Okay," he said. "That should slow them down." Nythera stepped closer. "You are not a soldier," she said. "Nope. Yet you are fighting like a strategist." Jonas smiled slightly. "I fix problems." For a moment the Empress simply looked at him. Then the station sensors flashed again. A fourth ship had appeared. Much larger. Much more dangerous. Nythera's voice became serious. "That one carries heavy weapons." Jonas stared at the screen. "Great," he muttered. Then he looked back at the Empress. "So, quick question." "Yes. How does your empire feel about humans?" Nythera considered this carefully. "Underrated." Jonas nodded. "Good." He turned back to the control panel and began typing rapidly. "Because if we survive the next 10 minutes, he said, the galaxy is about to learn something new about humanity. And somewhere deep inside the old mining station, the human engineer prepared his most creative idea yet. There is a moment in every war when the outcome stops depending on weapons. It depends on imagination. That moment arrived inside a dying mining station floating in empty space. Outside the asteroid, a fourth ship had appeared. It was not a stealth vessel like the others. It was larger, heavier, and its weapons were powerful enough to tear the entire station apart. Inside the control room, Jonas Hale stared at the tactical display and slowly rubbed his face. "Okay," he said quietly. "That's definitely a problem." Behind him, Empress Nythera watched the screen with calm intensity. "That vessel is a siege craft," she explained. "It is designed to destroy fortified installations." Jonas nodded slowly. "So basically it's a flying sledgehammer." "Yes." A deep vibration moved through the station as the new ship locked into position. Energy signatures began to rise. The enemy was preparing to fire. Jonas leaned forward over the console. "If they shoot that thing," he muttered, "this station becomes space dust." Nythera's golden eyes studied him carefully. "You still have the option to escape," she said quietly. "My enemies will focus on me." Jonas didn't even turn around. "Yeah," he replied casually, "that's not happening." The Empress tilted her head slightly. "Why?" Jonas finally looked back at her. His answer was simple. "Because leaving someone behind when you can help them, that's not how humans work." For a moment Nythera said nothing. Then she nodded once. "Very well." Outside, the siege ship completed its targeting scan. Commander Varkesh watched the station through his bridge display. "Fire when ready," he ordered. But before the weapon discharged, something unexpected happened. Inside the station, Jonas smiled. Because he had just finished his plan. The mining station suddenly powered down. Every light went dark. Every signal vanished. To the enemy sensors, the facility appeared dead. The assassins inside the corridors froze in confusion. On the siege ship's bridge, alarms blinked. "Commander," an officer reported, "the station power grid has collapsed." Varkesh frowned. "Is the target still inside?" "We cannot detect life signs." For a moment the commander considered the situation. Then he shrugged. Fire anyway. But just before the weapon charged, the asteroid moved. Not by much. Just a few degrees. But in space, even small movements matter. Because Jonas had activated something buried deep inside the old mining station. The industrial thrusters. Massive engines used decades ago to move the asteroid during mining operations. The ancient engines roared to life. The asteroid slowly rotated. And the siege ship's targeting system lost its firing angle. On the bridge, the officers shouted in confusion. The asteroid is moving. How? Varkesh growled. Correct the targeting solution. But Jonas was already doing more. Inside the station's control room, he opened every remaining fuel line connected to the thrusters. The engines burned hotter. Harder. The asteroid began spinning faster. Outside, the stealth ships struggled to maintain position. Their pilots had expected a silent, helpless target. Instead, they were dealing with a rotating mountain. Nythera watched the screen with growing interest. You are using the entire asteroid as a shield, she said. Jonas grinned. Big problems require big solutions. But he wasn't finished. While the asteroid rotated, the mining station's cargo systems activated again. Hundreds of metal containers launched out of the docking bays. They flew into space like a swarm of steel insects. The containers were empty. But that didn't matter. To enemy sensors, they looked like dozens of new ships. Commander Varkesh stared at the chaotic sensor display. What am I looking at? Multiple launches, the officer said nervously. Possible evacuation fleet. Varkesh slammed his fist against the console. It's a trick. But confusion had already spread across the fleet. Several ships moved to intercept the false targets. Others repositioned to avoid collision with the spinning asteroid. And in that moment of chaos, Jonas triggered the real surprise. Deep inside the mining station were several industrial plasma cutters. Massive tools designed to slice through asteroid rock. Jonas had quietly rerouted their power earlier. Now he fired them. 3 enormous beams of plasma shot out of hidden maintenance tunnels. The beams sliced across space and struck the closest stealth ship. Its hull ruptured instantly. The vessel exploded in silent fire. The remaining ships scattered in panic. Commander Varkesh stared in disbelief. A mining station cannot do this. But humanity had never believed in limits. Inside the control room, Jonas leaned back and watched the enemy fleet break formation. Turns out, he said calmly, tools are just weapons that haven't been used creatively yet. Nythera looked at him with new understanding. For centuries, powerful civilizations had dismissed humanity as small and insignificant. But this one engineer had just turned an abandoned station into a battlefield masterpiece. The assassins inside the station quickly realized the situation was lost. Their ships were retreating. Their mission had failed. One by one they attempted to escape. But the spinning asteroid made navigation nearly impossible. 2 more ships collided with drifting cargo containers. Another was struck by a second plasma beam. Within minutes, the surviving attackers fled into deep space. Silence returned. The asteroid slowly stopped rotating as the thrusters powered down. Inside the station, Jonas finally relaxed. Well, he said, stretching his arms, that was exciting. Nythera stepped beside him. Her expression was thoughtful. In my empire, she said slowly, engineers rarely command battles. Jonas shrugged. Yeah, humans are weird like that. The Empress looked out through the observation window. Stars filled the darkness beyond. You have changed the balance of this conflict, she said quietly. Jonas blinked. Wait, really? Yes. She turned toward him. My enemies now know 2 things. Jonas crossed his arms. Which are? Nythera's golden eyes shone with quiet respect. First, the Empress still lives. Jonas nodded. Good. And second, she continued, she now has a human ally. Jonas smiled. Well, that sounds like their problem. Far away, Across hundreds of star systems, news of the failed assassination would soon spread. Alien leaders would analyze the battle reports. They would study the strange tactics, the improvised weapons, the unpredictable creativity, and many of them would reach the same conclusion. Humanity had just demonstrated something terrifying. Not overwhelming power, not vast fleets, something far more dangerous. Imagination. And the galaxy was about to learn that humans never walk away from broken things. They fix them, even if the thing they have to fix is an entire empire.